The Littlefield Community School Board of Education meeting is now called to order. We are going to go ahead and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Washington.
So actually, we have some Turtle students, correct?
We do.
Virtual.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
So
I didn't see.
Virtual.
I'm sorry. I didn't see.
not your fault, Madam President. It's my fault.
I will turn it over to you, then, Superintendent Andre to
So I'm
guide
going
us.
to pre-introduce our guests from Turtle, and they have brought with us some of their virtual students to help us say the Pledge of Allegiance this morning. Correct, Principal Langle? Okay.
Thank you. I didn't see the faces on the screen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trying to keep up to that. I may have messed up the pledge for the first time in my life, trying to keep pace with the kids.
Well, thank you for having them. Do that for us. I appreciate that. So we will go ahead with the presenting school.
Now remember, every time I present, technology is not my friend.
It's not perfect.
Apparently not fancy.
We will
I don't have to take this public
Aren't they
ridicule and
cute?
shaming.
They're really cute, aren't they?
They are.
They are.
Hold on, I got you. I got you. Here we go. Here, there we go. Try it now.
Oh, there we go.
Use the keyboard. Yeah. Use the keyboard.
Well, Matt was saying that you could use another thing.
I'd like to introduce the principal of Turtle Elementary, Mrs. Kelly Bangle. Kelly, take it away.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, school board members, for allowing us to come present tonight. I've brought with me Amber Weidinger and Liz Schmidt, our learning coaches, and tonight we're going to be presenting on formative assessment, which is the foundation of a quality multi-tiered system of supports. It's been said that assessments can transform the instructional process by offering a clear snapshot of what students know, what they need to learn, and how best to support their educational journey. With formative assessment, we can determine the needs of the whole child and plan for their support. Tonight we'll be focusing on three important outcomes. First, what is formative assessment and why is it important? Secondly, how is formative assessment collected? And third, how do teachers and students use formative assessment? We've been doing a lot of work this year and last year with Adaptive Schools and FAME and also Steve Seward, and we're hoping tonight that you'll notice that we've woven in some of the structures that we've learned with adult professional development. So we're going to try them out right now. I want you to take a look at those outcomes and do yourself a favor and jot down which one you want to pay most attention to tonight. We want to activate your thinking in relation to our board goal in defining a formative assessment and why it's important. Formative assessment is the foundation of our MTSS program, and it leads to high-quality instruction through all the tiers. It's how we are able to address the whole child.
So we will start talking about what formative assessment is, and it's an ongoing process that our teachers and students use to improve teaching and then student learning. It involves regular ongoing assessments and feedback to help students understand where they are in their learning. And it's really the heart of intentional teaching and the way that we make decisions based on our students' needs. Wanted to introduce what FAME is briefly. So it is it's a group of it's an organization called Formative Assessment for Michigan Educators, and it was started by MVP. And so Michelle had brought it to meetings, and we're doing a little mini cohort in Lapeer with coaches and principals, and bringing some of the best practices about formative assessment. So some of the information we have in our presentation and that we give to our teachers is from this. And then I wanted to also introduce the circle of ongoing analysis and instruction of learning. So first we're talking about how to identify a learning target and what students need to be able to do. We use evidence based on their learning towards that target. Our teachers are giving feedback, peers are giving each other feedback, and we're making instructional decisions, and then the kind of circle starts all over again. So our work from FAME, we brought into PLCs and our staff meetings, and we wanted to make a shared understanding and a shared commitment. So here you can see some of our teachers are also discussing the outcomes from the presentation today. So what formative assessment is, how they use it, and why it matters. And we felt like creating a common definition helped us explore some of the assessments that were in use, and then it also gives teachers some new strategies to bring to their own classroom. So the second, what it is and why.
Liz, you are definitely cruising.
I feel like I'm talking fast. Why is formative assessment so important? And so something that kind of comes up is as teachers, we don't want to just go through the motions, and so something that we are constantly doing is monitoring student learning, right? And so the fancy word behind that is formative assessment, and we're using formative assessment to help students identify their strengths and weaknesses in relation to their learning target. And then teachers can recognize where students are struggling, and they can adjust accordingly. So that's why it's important. Another powerful quote here, and it's just a really great opportunity for checking for understanding and some of the power that comes behind that. So we found benefits in on-the-spot feedback for teachers and students, which kind of takes some craft, right? Teachers have to know what the learning target is, know where their students are in relation to that learning target to give on-the-spot feedback. And that really helps because it's timely and teachers can make those adjustments, but students can also make those adjustments while they're learning towards that learning target. We found that when they do that, we are shortening the gap. And then the students take some ownership, and they're getting a growth mindset, and they're feeling more successful towards the learning target.
So now that we've kind of given you a little bit of a framework of what it is and why it's important, we're going to shift into exploring how it's collected. So it is collected in many different formats, and we're going to triangulate data so that we can really get a comprehensive understanding of each student and where they are in relation to a learning target. That's done through analyzing products, observations, conferences using high-level questioning, and really it's understanding where students are, what's a strength, what's a weakness, where's their next step, where do we push their thinking and their learning. Products, so that's one of the ways in which we collect student data in relation to a learning target. Some of the products that teachers analyze and explore student learning is, the first example is a reader and writer's notebook that happens in all grade levels. We have math journals, performance tasks, exit tickets. In fourth grade, they were working on creating an anthology of their writing across the year, so writing portfolios. All of these are examples of where teachers can analyze what students can do, what they need to do next, and determine how to get them there. Sorry, I keep pushing on. Observations. It's a simple thing that we all do. We observe each other, but it is so impactful in teaching. Especially when the observation is around what am I noticing about a student, what can they do, what are their next steps, how do I push them forward. And this is an example of how we have a first grade teacher who's taking notes about what her students are doing as readers, both in RW, Means Readers Workshop, and during MTSS. And her her notes are designed that way. What am I observing? What's the instruction that I'm going to do in that moment? And what's my next step in teaching? Conferences. So conferring is a one-on-one discussion that teachers and students have together. And it is specific to what am I seeing in that moment? How am I going to support students and move them forward? It has the biggest impact on student learning because it is immediate feedback. I'm seeing this, I'm going to teach you what you need to do next. And it is also differentiated based on specific individual student needs. And it's really like one of our most powerful tools, but one that we kind of take for granted because we do it almost automatically.
So finally, we're going to reflect on how teachers and students use formative assessment. So Amber kind of talked about what it looks like in the moment, but then there's something that happens afterwards, and teachers are reflecting on how it looks, and they're giving a verbal or some written feedback, and it helps students, like I said before, monitor their own progress towards mastery of the learning target. And then in FAME, we kind of have been discussing what can that formative feedback look like. And so we're really used to feedback from the teacher, right? And so we're kind of starting to get more comfortable with what does it look like when peers are giving each other feedback? And what does it look like when students are their own agent in their progress towards the learning target? So what does that look like for themselves? And Amber will kind of give you a snapshot of what they look like at Turl.
So feedback from the teacher. This is something that happens after an observation. So a teacher is able to observe a student and then give direct feedback, usually in the moment of teaching. So this is an example in the Iberca's kindergarten classroom. A student was working through and showing his work for an addition problem, and she noticed through observation that he had mastery of the learning target. And then was able to push his thinking further by having him kind of expand upon his thinking, share his, sorry, that's my daughter, share his reasoning and how he solved the problem, and then also push him further by having him add on some mathematical vocabulary. This feedback in the form from a teacher it needs to be positive, it needs to be clear, it needs to be ongoing and consistent, and then it also needs to give that slight push, that next step for students in the moment. Feedback from peers. So feedback from peers is one in which students are going to be working together to reflect on the learning target, identifying strengths and areas of next steps together. It's an opportunity for students to use the vocabulary of a learning target and the success criteria and apply it in their own way and really take ownership in that language that is being taught. Some of the opportunities that our teachers use to bring peer feedback into the classroom, they analyze rubrics, they use gallery walks, peer feedback forms, engagement structures. That middle picture is an example of peer feedback that's happening between Paige Trainer and Alyssa Darby's classrooms. They're both fourth grade classrooms, and they teamed up across the classroom to give peer feedback across classrooms. And it was during a revising strategy that they did with a peer. They were working on their memoir writing topic, and they were using their rubric to self-analyze in a gallery format, walking around the room, noticing what are the strengths of the piece that I'm looking at in front of me, what is an improvement that the student could do to move towards the learning target. These are all opportunities where it helps students reflect and grow together, and empowers them to work together and collaborate and really be goal-oriented in their own learning process. Finally, student self-assessment is in which the students are going to be reflective and thinking about their own learning, where they're really taking ownership in their process in that learning. Our teachers plan for opportunities of self-assessment. They outline learning targets in lessons. They talk about success criteria. They provide rubrics, checklists. They use visual anchor charts, all in ways for students to reflect on their own learning towards a learning target. This is a snapshot from Kara Cormack's second grade classroom, and students wrote responses in their reader's notebook using the success criteria that was co-created about what a successful response would include. They used this in the moment of responding in their notebooks about a book they had read. So it was specific to the work they were doing right at that time, so they could kind of check themselves as they did it, but then they could reflect and assess themselves, self-assess themselves after the fact as well. And, so by scaffolding, using teacher feedback, peer feedback, and student self-assessment, teachers are really getting a true snapshot, a comprehensive snapshot of what students' understanding is. It's pushing them further, it's empowering them, and it's helping them feel valued. It's giving them next steps in their own learning, and it's developing a classroom that is truly reflective and growth mindset oriented. So, Patty, you've heard about him, I hope you have, but he has a lot of research out there that we didn't just make this up, right? There's a lot of research out there that shows the impact that can have, one of the highest impacts on student learning and achievement when it's done effectively. And the things we've outlined today are examples of how we are trying to do this effectively and meet the needs of all our students. And here comes Steve.
So now teachers can take intentional action based on the data they've collected. So through formative assessment and that powerful feedback they're giving students, they're able to impact each individual child. They're able to plan for tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, tiers for MTSS, and they are creating high impact MTSS structures. So in closing, I'm going to do a little formative assessment with you. We would like you to think about what are some of the things that square with your thinking, your beliefs, or your values. Maybe some things that are circling around in your mind still, or what are 3 points that you want to remember or think more about. Take a moment, jot that down. While you're thinking about these things and jotting down, we'd like to take another opportunity to thank you for being able to present on formative assessment. Cheryl always enjoys presenting to the school board, so thank you.
Thank you, we always enjoy it too. Are there any comments or questions from you?
So I have a question. I, of course, teach at the college level. So I hear formative and summative assessment. So you guys just really cleared up formative, which I mean, I knew, but again, I think that's important. But the summative on the K-12 side would be like the MTSS, right? I mean, is that kind of,
So some of it could be end of unit assessments.
Okay.
It could be.
or major task like a big
Major
state.
task.
Okay.
The cool thing
Like
about some of it though is it can inform your instruction as well. It might lead you to the fact that you have to reteach some things. So it can also inform your instruction. So kind of both.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions?
I just like the way that, you guys put all this stuff together, you pull it in for the kids, but, I take a look at it and think it could be useful at work. With my own employees, like, you know what I mean? Like, it just is so basic when you think about it, but it's great feedback, yeah, it's always usually the boss who tells them they're doing something wrong, but guess what, if you have some peer feedback, and someone says, hey, you do that great, but you're not doing this good, and you get that feedback, and then you self-assess it as well, and then you talk to the boss about it, and now it all makes sense, and you just don't feel like you're getting beat up by the boss every time. Like, it's so much easier, and you grow better with it, especially when you find out other people are doing the same thing you are, so, I like it. Good stuff.
I would say one of the important steps for sure that I listened to what you said is teaching the kids how to self-reflect on their own assessment about how they feel they did, where they feel they can improve. That's so hard to do. So teaching at a young level, embracing that as a fundamental skill for them is so important. Because as you grow older, you need to self-reflect even more often, I feel like, to help continue to guide you to your path. fundamental. That is an important skill, so thank you for sharing with us today.
I think a really good, my favorite quote is what Amber said, we're not just winging it. So to kind of square the circle for us, you connect what you hear from Michelle on the district goals presentation. You should connect to the types of professional development that teachers and learning coaches are being exposed to. And then when the buildings come and present, you're seeing those goals and that professional development, as articulated by researchers like Hattie, manifest themselves in actual practice for teachers. And we talk about the idea of metacognition, right? The thinking about one's own thinking. You have second graders who are engaged in that kind of work now, right? And talk to any teacher that has invested any time about really good peer assessment and self-assessment work. It's significantly more work on behalf of the teacher to set up a classroom where that kind of assessment is happening, but 10 times as meaningful for the learner. It's really easy for us as teachers to think of and invent an assignment, administer it, collect it, and give feedback. Because we control every aspect of that, and that's how most of us were trained. It's how most of us learned in classrooms, it's how most of us were taught in our own education coursework in college, it's how our teaching experiences were. And part of what we do here, I think, is untrain some of the things that are in the DNA of educators to relinquish that control and organize classrooms where the people who are doing the thinking are the learners, are the students. The burden of assessment of their own work and their own assessment in general is borne on their, it rests on their shoulders. Now, your teachers are working their butts off trying to create these systems, not just for one day, not just for one subject area, but for an entire year. And I think, Lisa, you made a very important distinction, which I think people need to understand. Formative assessment on the way to figuring out if a student knows what we're teaching them is the only way for an organization to systematize our methodology to get growth. We grew up in a world where, well, I can just see it in my kids' eyes. I know when they know. And this whole mystery of teaching was garbage. It's a science. There are actual, legitimately measurable steps that we can employ that are better than other practices. And that's what you're seeing. The results are going to follow. They can't not if we do it with fidelity and consistency and constancy across all content areas and across all grade levels. And it's why the learning coach position, I believe, is the most critical, because if we don't constantly think about the art and the science of teaching and work shoulder to shoulder with our teachers and support that, we're going to go back to the days of old where it was, here's your keys, teacher A, good luck, go get them, no one's ever coming into your room, you figure out your own assessment, and if your kids do well, they do well, if they don't, they don't, you know. Good teaching is just a big mystery. That's not how we want to be. We want to tear that veil back. It's not a mystery. We're not doing it in silos. We're not independent contractors. We're part of an organization. We're part of a system. And the learning coaches are the connective tissue between those district goals that we evaluate and look at every year and how that actually happens in our classrooms. And this presentation is very reflective of all those things. Goals, PD, learning coaching, and seeing it happen at the actual student level is very, very important.
Can I just make one more point too, that when you hear the word formative, it sounds formal, right? Like it's got to be formal. And that's what, I've learned over time, but the common man is going to go formative is a test, right? You're going to give me a piece of paper and I'm going to take a test. I love the fact how you guys pointed out that it's not,
Great.
right? It's
Great.
not at all. Just like
Yes.
Craig said, you could use it and you can use it anywhere.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a really good point. Think about the simplicity of the idea of like an exit ticket. What are the 3 things you learned today, right? Kid writes tests down.
I use muddiest point all the time. What's the muddiest point?
And you're the teacher, and you're reading these going, oh my God, they didn't learn anything today.
Exactly.
Right? If that doesn't tell you what to do tomorrow when they walk in the door,
Right.
then you're just doing it wrong, right? They didn't get it. Okay, that's okay, it happens. I gotta go back tomorrow and start from scratch, but we are doing that so it's not just happenstance, it's an actual system.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. We always love this close comment, so thank you for taking the time to do so. Okay, next is public comment, but I don't see any public comment for this evening, so we will head right into our reports. So let's start with the personnel committee. So Mrs. LeVar, would you please share with us the personnel committee report?
Yes, I will. On October 2nd at 6 p.m., the committee members Nicole McKenna, April Barr, and Summer Putnam were present, as well as Nick Wandry, Kim Seeperly, and Mary Moss. Meeting was called to order at 6 p.m. We discussed the superintendent evaluation timeline update. New guidelines for the superintendent evaluation process were discussed. New law mandates what the labels will be when evaluating, moving from 4 labels to 3, effective, developing, and needing support. Discussion took place regarding concerns over the change in rubrics provided by MASB, and the committee discussed the option of exploring different evaluation tools. Now that performance evaluations are a mandatory subject of bargaining again, we made the decision to utilize the flexibility in the law and move to biannual evaluations for effective teachers and school administrators. In order for this to happen, the individual must be labeled effective and non-probationary on their 3 most recent ratings. As determined by administration, these individuals will be evaluated by Alpha AL in 2024-25 and M through Z in 2025-2026. It was suggested that in keeping everything consistent, the superintendent's evaluation cycle would be biannual on the same criteria, and a sample updated timeline would be shared. This would provide time to consider an alternative tool and would give time to consider the impact to performance-based pay. It was the consensus of the committee to approve a biannual superintendent evaluation if all requirements are met for the superintendent, along with moving forward with exploring different superintendent evaluation instruments. The meeting adjourned at 6:51 p.m.
Any questions or comments? Thank you, Mrs. LeVar. Next, we will do the Finance and Operations Committee. Dr. Watson, would you please share the committee report?
Sure. The Finance and Ops Committee met October 18th at 2 p.m. Via Zoom. Members present, myself, Summer Putnam, and Lisa Novak. Others attending, Matt Wandry, Eric Ingalls, Brian Batter, Julia Peruski from Barton Mello, Kristen Menino, and Donna Hanson from Plant Moran. Called to order at 2. We discussed the audit presentation. Donna Hanson and Kristen Menino from the district's independent auditor, Plant Moran, reviewed the 2023-24 audit results with the committee. Again, this year, the district received an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that could be received. A full report will be presented to the Board of Education at our December 4th board meeting. Snowplow bids. Operations Director, Brian Batter, reviewed the snowplow bids. As requested, bids were sought out this year for a more competitive cost. Quotes were received from Novak Construction, Bill Joe Stock Snowplowing, and Heritage & Company. Currently, they are recommending the following. Group A, which is Lapeer High School, Zemmer, Lynch, Mayfield, and Schickler, to Heritage & Company out of Holly, Michigan, for a total of $1,093 for 2 to 6 inches, $2,185.98 for 6 or more per plow. Group B, which is Bus Garage, Roland Warner, CFI, Turl, and Maple Grove, to Heritage & Company for a total of $1,157.26 for 2 to 6 inches and $2,314.50 for 6 inches or more per plow. Group C, which is A&SC, Crampton and Murphy, to Heritage & Company for a total of $224 for 2 to 6 inches and $447.99 for 6 or more per plow. The majority of the committee was in approval of moving forward with the district's recommendation. Bond change orders. Number 17, Bid Pack 5.2 Stormwater Detention System. Barton Mello recommends the issuance of a change order to Eagle Excavation for the installation of an additional stormwater detention system at the bus garage for amount not to exceed $154,900 $1,314. This water detention system allows excess water to temporarily be stored in a basin to eliminate an increased rush of water into the city of Lapierre's storm sewer system. This resulted in 7 additional storm sewer structures being added to the project and regrading sections of the site to direct water to the new structures instead of the city's right-of-way. And number 18, bid pack 5.2, install additional drainage. Bart Mallow recommends the issuance of a change order to Eagle Excavation to provide and install additional drainage to account for the high levels of groundwater at the bus garage for an amount not to exceed $91,596. It was determined that the groundwater was getting trapped between the clay and asphalt, causing significant damage to the asphalt. This change required the contractor to add finger drains at all the catch basin locations, additional drain tile along the curb on the east side of the lot and around the island to help the water drain before new asphalt was installed. It was a consensus of the committee to recommend full board approval on both change orders at the meeting tonight, and we adjourned at 2:57 p.m.
Any comments or questions? Thank you, Dr. Watson. And we will do the policy committee. Dr. Novak, would you share us the committee report?
Yes, so the policy committee met October 18th at 12 p.m. via Zoom. Committee members attending were myself, Jamie Coker, and others attending were Matt Wandry, Quincy Cooley, and Mary Moss. Committee discussed the following policies. Policy 1240, evaluation of the superintendent. Policy has been updated to reflect new laws which mandate what the labels will be when evaluating, moving from 4 labels to 3, effective developing and needing support. In addition, this policy has been updated to include a change in the allowance of biannual evaluations when preceded by 3 years of effective ratings. Policy 3220, professional staff evaluation. Policy updates include the same changes as described in the evaluation of the superintendent to make all administrator evaluations consistent. And then policy 3230, school administrator evaluation, delete policy 1420. The original policy 1420, school administrator evaluation, has been changed to 3230. In order to keep policies with the correct grouping, policy 1420 will be deleted and 3230 will be created. Additional updates include the same changes as described in the evaluation of the superintendent to make all administrator evaluations consistent. It was a consensus of the meeting of the committee to recommend moving policies forward for first reading at the November 6th at tonight's meeting. The meeting adjourned at 12:24.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Novak. Okay, that concludes our reports for this evening. We will head into our action items. So we have our first consent grouping, approval of minutes of October 2nd, 2024. First reading of board policy, policy 1240, evaluation of the superintendent, policy 1420, school administrator evaluation, removal of policy, policy 3220, professional staff evaluation, policy 3230, school administrator evaluation, new policy. Are there any consent groupings anyone wishes to be removed? Okay, I'm hearing none. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion that the reading of the minutes be waived and the consent agenda items be approved as presented.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion and a support. Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mr. Lepka?
Aye.
Dr. Watson?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Ms. Hofer? Aye. Ms. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. Next, we have change order number 17, bid pack number 5.2, bus garage storm water detention system.
I'll make a motion that Eagle with excavation be issued on an additional amount not to exceed $154,314 for the installation of an additional stormwater detention system at the bus garage. Support.
Okay. I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mr. Lepka?
Aye.
Dr. Watson?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Ms. Hofer? Aye. Ms. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. And then the last action item is change order number 18, bid pack number 5.2, bus garage, install additional drainage.
I make a motion that Eagle Excavation be issued an additional amount not to exceed $91,596 to provide and install additional drainage to account for the high levels of groundwater at the bus garage.
Second.
discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mr. Lipka?
Aye.
Dr. Watson?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Ms. Hofer? Aye. Ms. Tutler says aye. Motion carries. Okay, that concludes our action items for this evening. We will go ahead and head into board member communications. Any topics for this evening?
I have a topic.
What?
Oh, I have two.
Who's the first?
So the bands, grades 8 through 12, had their Halloween concert last week. And we had all of the children dressed up in their different outfits, and it was fantastic. The marching band did a great display in the gym. It was completely packed. It was awesome. It was hot in there because somebody either turned the heat on or something, I don't know. But there was a lot going on in there, and it was fantastic to see all of the excitement, all of the kids, all of the adults. I mean, Mr. Hunt, Miss Johnson, I mean, they were Mario and Luigi, and they had, and all of the kids just, you had kids dressed up in pickles, you had kids dressed up as bananas. I mean, every kid had a costume, and it was fantastic. And so I want to commend all of the bands for all of their hard work and just a wonderful way to share their talents with the community. It was a really wonderful evening. And then also I want to thank all of the teachers and administrators who are in Washington, D.C. this week with our 8th graders. They have had a jam-packed week and they're still there. They've got, I think, one more day and then they're going to start heading home. They should be home on Friday. And I just want to send a shout out to all of the staff and the administrators and all of the parents who are acting as chaperones, who are exhausted from all of that bus trip and from their itinerary is packed. And I'm sure if any of you have gone, you have seen how much they cram in. And those kids don't even get to their hotel until usually 10 o'clock or 10:30 at night, crash, and then they're up again the next morning at either 6 or 7 and they are ready to go. I've been communicating with some of the chaperones and the kids are just, they're exhausted, but they are just go. And wonderful opportunities for these kids to see.
During election week.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that too.
What an awesome
Awesome
experience.
experience.
Yes, very awesome. They've had great weather, which is fantastic. No rain. I've seen lots of wonderful photos. So just a huge shout out to Mrs. Wolford, Mrs. Wilcox, Mr. Wadzinski, Mr. Stevens, just all of them. I know I've forgotten some, but I just want to really commend them for their dedication for having this trip. I believe it's their 17th year that they have taken these kids for this wonderful experience.
And I believe Mrs. Wolford has been in charge of every single one of those.
I believe she has.
And Mr. Stevens' birthday.
And Mr. Stevens
Oh, that's
spends his
right.
birthday
He
every
spends his
year.
He
birthday.
spends his birthday there.
He spends his birthday with 8th graders, so
That's
that is the dedication.
In
So
a land far, far away.
yes, so I just want to shout out to all of those wonderful parents and teachers and administrators who are helping chaperone our kids to see our democracy in full force, and especially during election week. So thank you to all of them.
I was just gonna say, I was invited to do Career Day at Lynch recently, and so I got to talk to 2 5th grade classes and a kindergarten class. Well, Career Day could be an eye doctor. What I found out is 5th graders are pretty smart. We take care of glasses, contacts, eye infections, all that stuff. They covered everything. I was like, wow, they're pretty informed. Kindergartners, all I do is give drops. That's all I do. Every single one of them asks the same. So if you get something in your eye, you go to the eye doctor, he'll give you eye drops. The very next kid right next to him, raise your hand. Yeah, well, what else?
Or your mom flushes.
And they
out
said,
the
you get something in your eye, you get eye drops from the eye doctor. And the kid right at the next table said, if you get something in your eye, you know you go to the eye doctor. So I feel
One
like,
of them said,
None of them said glasses, none of them said contacts, it was all eye drops, so I think there's a stigma
Did
there.
you formatively assess them? Along
We
the
gotta
way?
work on it.
Yeah,
My
let's work on it.
first
Yeah,
grade,
we gotta
they'll
work
understand
on
there's
it.
glasses involved, maybe. We don't just put eye drops in there, so, yeah. No, it was so funny. It was, every single one asked the same question, one right after the other. It was so cute. So it was fun. It was a fun morning, so.
You know, addressing kindergartners is, speaking of Wyatt spending his birthday with eighth graders, right? The art of being a great kindergarten teacher is, I have presented to them so many times, you pick a topic, right? And you're talking about it and you finish up, so I think one time I was trying to explain the bond and, you know, buildings and how that works, and any questions? Do you know my brother who goes to Roland Warner? His name is Rick.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, love her. Good stuff. Good stuff.
I have one more thing, I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm piggybacking off of Craig's. I also had the opportunity with the Lapeer County Road Commission to demonstrate at Lynch Elementary to 7 different classes.
I saw a video of you.
I was
You were
there,
out there.
with 2 of my fellow employees, and we got to show the grader and we got to show the big plow truck. And basically the biggest thing that we tapped into, I was elected the speaker, which shocking, because none of the guys wanted to talk. They said, hey, no, you got this. So basically we talked about school safety and the lights and staying away from the plows during snow season, and their biggest fun that they had was being able to climb up into the truck and honk the horns. And we talked about signs and safety and how big the tires are. And we had kindergartens, we had early fivers, we had 3rd graders and 5th graders. And I can attest to the range of questions that we got from those kids, but the biggest thing that we were able to touch base on was school safety and how when it's snowy, you know, wear bright clothing when you're outside, don't go by the road, and just be safe. So I was really thankful for Lynch to invite us on behalf of the road commission, and we had a great time, and they said that this was their first one that they've had since COVID. So she was very appreciative at so many people that came out and you know, showed their craft and showed the different ins and outs of what it is that they do, and I was just honored to have been a part of that, and they did a great job over there at Lynch, so.
Awesome, they asked so many questions. That's good.
Oh, they had all kinds of questions.
Anyone else? Again, I want to just thank you guys. We always appreciate the buildings coming and sharing with us. I mean, that's really the highlight of why we're all here, right? Is seeing, watching what the kids are doing. Secondly, amazing things that Matt continues to post about the bond updates. So those auxiliary buildings at all elementaries are coming along beautifully inside even. So a lot of great things happening in our district to share. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Superintendent Audrey.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Kelly, Amber, and Liz. I know you represent the entire building, but you're the ones that are here, so thank you for doing that and presenting. We appreciate you. But I want to wish a special good luck to our girls volleyball team competing in districts against Davidson tonight. Hence, Mrs. McKenna's absence and Mrs. Seafood's absent, 2 moms of seniors who are hoping that this isn't their daughter's last high school volleyball game. So good luck to our Lightning ladies. I want to thank the board for your support for the alterations we had to make to those bid packs. We appreciate your support, knowing that these projects are complicated, and when we start digging holes in the ground, you find things you didn't anticipate, and if Julia was better at her job, we would have to figure that stuff out. We would have to deal with it. But whatever, Julia.
You know what, I'll try and step it up.
Thank you,
We
that would
got
be great.
2 more parking lots.
2 years to get to We don't know what's under Schickler Drive, do we?
Oh.
Hey,
Pipeline gold.
we're pulling for you. We're pulling for you.
Is that the last one? Is that like part of the, oh,
Cheryl,
We have to work on
yeah,
the fall
and we got high school.
yeah, high school.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Lots of fun digging. We're getting really close to scheduling the groundbreaking ceremonies for the multi-purpose rooms, the elementary schools. You saw the picture I texted you guys today. Really, the picture doesn't do it justice. They're beautiful, beautiful facilities. Big election last night. We want to offer special congratulations to our board president, Mrs. Putnam, on her re-election. We want to offer congratulations to Mr. John Van Wagner for his election. He'll be joining this board in January. And we also want to offer a special thanks to Mr. Casey Carpenter for participating in that process, putting yourself out there to represent your community and the school board. I always say, school board member is the most thankless volunteer job there is in the community. Not a lot of benefits to make tough decisions, and everybody's critical. So anyone willing to do that deserves our respect and thanks. So to all three candidates, thank you for choosing to be a part of our school district in a very, very important way. With that, I yield the balance of my time back to you, Madam President.
Thank you, Superintendent Baldry.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Okay, Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mr. Lipka?
Aye.
Dr. Watson?
Aye.
Mrs. LeVar?
Aye.
Ms. Hofer?